Welcome to Season 6 of the Stories in the Cemetery podcast. This season, we're shaking things up a bit with deeper questions into the paranormal. And to do that, your host, Nicholas McGirr, has invited the owner of Amen Paranormal Research, Joshua Amen, to be his co-host. To learn more about their studies and articles, visit storiesinthecemetery.com, or you can check out the Paranormal Investigation Workbook or the Paranormal Investigator's Almanac, both available on Amazon. Stories in the Cemetery takes you ghost hunting in Charleston, South Carolina, and reveals his findings from those investigations here on the Stories in the Cemetery podcast. Let's get into today's episode with Nick and Josh.
Hey bearded ghost hunters, are you taking care of your beard with all natural products? The Magnanimous Beard Superstore has everything you need from beard oils, shampoos, beard butter, beard balm, and so much more. You can have any of their products scented with one of their amazing 45 cents. Head over to www.yourbeardsuperstore.com and use code GHOST at checkout to receive $5 off your order. Both Nick and Josh use these products daily, and our beards look and feel great and smell great too. Head over to yourbeardsuperstore.com and use code GHOST for your discount on these magnanimous products. You won't be disappointed. If you have a white or silver beard, they even have specialized products that will help keep the coloring of your beard. Use code GHOST at yourbeardsuperstore.com. This ad is Zeus approved.
Holy December, everybody. We're almost at the end of the entire season for season 6. Now, Josh, I listen to a lot of podcasts, as I'm sure you do, and you even did this with the Tales from a Ghost Hunter podcast where you had like shortened seasons. Is there any reason why you chose to kind of like do shortened, almost like by quarter type of seasons? Was there a reason for that?
You know what I ended up doing was I did like 12. I did my first season, I think, was like 12 episodes. And I just figured it was a good number, to do like a season. Because every season I was going to try and do like a theme. And I felt like it made it more interesting to constantly turn it around and have something else going on.
Okay, that's fair. I've always looked at seasons as it's a year, because this podcast hasn't, it's evolved with you being on board, but it hasn't like really changed the topic of like, let's break this shit down into the ghost world. You know what I mean? So I just felt like evolving, the topics as we kind of moved along. So maybe that's why I thought the way that I did. But folks, this is episode 75. Holy shitballs. Like we like put you guys through the ringer this year by talking about all kinds of weird stuff. And last episode being Scooby-Doo. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I know Josh and I hate to say like we were scrambling to try to find like more things to add to that topic. There really just wasn't the girth there. It was just a fun conversation. But let's go through some show notes real quick, just because I'm only going to focus on one. And that one show note is going to be about our Patreon. Now, we're getting really close, so if you haven't subscribed to our Patreon as of yet, there's going to be a whole brand new podcast on there, Josh. Why don't you break down the tiers again for our folks, and then we'll kind of get into today's topic.
Yeah, so we're going to have multiple tiers on the Patreon there, and it's going to be really cool. Like, I'm looking forward to this, pulling up the tiers here so that I can actually, like, talk through them.
Sorry, I kind of threw you a curveball.
Yeah, I was not ready for that one. Where is it? I haven't been on the Patreon in a minute either. I have not done anything about that.
I
probably
have not
be on it a
either.
little bit more.
We should. Well, at this point, we probably are at the point that our folks are getting to this. So what you got it, Josh?
Yeah, so we have the I'm having issues figuring out where I'm going or where I'm supposed to be.
Isn't that like a 90s song lyric somewhere?
Something like that, yeah.
I think it is. So, folks, while he's trying to find that, the podcast that will be separated from the Stories in the Cemetery, just normal podcast, the podcast as we call it, this one's going to be just on secret societies. You should have already had a sneak preview of our first episode. We'll relaunch that through Patreon in January. But we're going to do one of those per month. Basically just for timing of recordings, just because we're doing the watch parties, we're doing this podcast, we're doing a secret societies podcast, and we kind of have a flow, ebb and flow going on with all of that. So secret societies and how basically we're going to try to tie it into, like, how does that go into the paranormal? Like, Josh and I both love like weird shit that just goes on in this world, and we thought secret societies would be a good place to start. So every episode, as we talk about each society, club, whatever classifies as an actual society, then we're going to try to tie that into what could they have possibly done for the paranormal field, or what have they already done, or what are they withholding from the paranormal field, which is where I think most of those questions are going to actually go. So, Josh, did you figure out our tier levels?
Yeah, we are off to an amazing start today.
I know, right?
Why can't I figure out where this is?
You know, it'll be even better. I could share the screen.
Oh, there you go.
So let me bring it up. All right, folks. So as you can see here, these are the paid membership tiers. So it starts off with the paranormal enthusiast. Josh, can you see those?
Yes. So Paranormal Enthusiasts, $5 a month. So this gets you access to just the side podcast. So you guys just get the Secret Society podcast, and there's going to be some fun little things that come along with that. So certain episodes are related to locations or areas where we've actually investigated, and there will be some photos and little EVPs, things included. But that's just that. So the next one is going to be the Paranormal Researcher at $10 a month. So this gets you the podcast. You also get some merch, and then there's going to be so member shout out. Okay. Yeah. So the member shout outs on the podcast. So the main podcast, we will shout you out. You get the Secret Society podcast and you get merch. And then we have the $15 Secret Society tier. Now, just for that extra $5, you're getting your member shout out, you're getting your merch. You're also able to make requests for the main podcast of something you would like to hear. So, and this is something we can go back and forth on. I have no problem emailing people about it to try and figure out if we can refine a great idea that you guys come up with. And then we'll obviously shout you out on the podcast for it. You get the bonus podcast, and you also get to join the community chat. So you get to be part of the S6E Secret Society. And that gives you access to talking to me and Nick.
Wow, look at that. So, let's see how we can get that off the screen now. There we go. Perfect. Look at that. That actually worked out well. So, pretty cool. Now that we're on video, we can do that shit. So there you guys have it. So you can always find Stories in the Cemetery's Patreon. That's pretty easy to find. There's no like numbers or underscores or any of that crazy shit. Just Stories in the Cemetery on Patreon. And make sure you're signing up if you're gonna, want to listen to that Secret Society podcast. So I mean, I'm pretty stoked about it. It means a shit ton of research. That's another reason why we've decided on one episode per month, because we still do research for this podcast. So I guess with that, Josh, what are we talking about today?
So today I am actually going to be asking Nick about a bunch of his literary works.
Oh.
So for those of you that don't know, Nicholas McGirr is not just the creator of S6E and the scoring system. He also has his own books. So, and while these are all fiction works, they're actually really good reads. So, and I wanted to go through quite a few of them. First, I think it'd be best if we go through and read out all of the titles. So, first book is Byron.
Wait,
right?
we'll pull these up. Actually, let's kind of go through it this way. I'll kind of introduce them as the series, if that works. So, during my college years, and I was writing fiction novels, I needed side projects to kind of keep my readers interested. So I came up with these novelettes. So they are, I don't know, roughly what, about 100 pages, some of them. But they are all in a series based off of reincarnation. So we have the life tree, if you guys can see that. And then we move into the umbrella tree. So we'll talk about that one, obviously. And then the rhythm tree. So, oh,
Hold it this way.
sorry.
This way. You're holding halfway off screen.
Ah, well, on my screen, it comes up just fine. That's why I was going to the edge. So that's those three. And like I said, those are short, quick reads. And then these are the ones I was rating in between. So this is a Greek mythology series that I wrote based off of the Greek underworld. So first book in the series is called Growing Dim. So Josh, is that in the middle enough for you? Um, and then book 2 of this series is called Book of Joel. So that would be this one here. Oh, look at that. Josh has his in his hand. And then my
Yes.
latest fiction title went under my pseudonym, pen name, everybody, under Nick Knight. And this is Byron. So that's kind of the order of how these books are written. My very first book, I hope you're not going to be asking many questions about that. It's called Life of Death. It was my experimentation to see if I can put words to paper. So it's a great book, or I'm sorry, it's a great cover, great story, horribly written book. So it's up on Amazon in case anybody wants to, just contribute to the SITC funding. But that's kind of how that came to be.
Right.
So
As well
I
as
guess,
all of these books. So they're all on Amazon.
yes, they are all on Amazon, everybody. So of course, links will be in the show notes. But you can just type in, you could probably just put in Nick Knight, and you'll definitely get to see Byron, because that's my only book underneath that particular pen name. And then type in Nicholas McGirr, and you'll get, we'll put my author page from Amazon on there as well. So this is my first love, guys. All these books are about some kind of death, afterlife, something. So this is my introductory, I guess, part of my life where I entered the paranormal world. That's why this is relevant to today's podcast. So, gotta love origin stories. So Josh, let's hear it, man. You hammered me about the SITC scoring system. What the
Yep.
fuck are you gonna do to me about my fiction work? Let's do it.
So, and there's multiple reasons why we're bringing in all of these books as well. Like, I want people to start to get, to knowing behind the authors, behind the creator of the SITC podcast scoring system. Like, there's an entire umbrella that's starting to form. So it's only right that people start to understand and learn a little bit more about you, especially now we got the Paranormal Network for paranormal podcasts and for paranormal groups.
Yes.
So we can continue to broaden out more and more and more. Not to mention, you have a new book that should be coming out relatively soon, if I'm
Fingers
not
crossed.
mistaken. So that's a great introduction to that as well. Now, the order the books go in is different than the order you showed them, because you showed them the order you wrote them, correct? Because
Yes.
you have a few that are all related.
Yes.
So do we want to go with the inspiration for the first book in the series, or do you want to go for the inspiration for the first book written?
We can go, I guess, series. So, I mean, however you want to go about doing that. So I guess, I mean, we'll put the tree books, as I like to call them, the novelettes, the shorter, thinner copies. So the inspiration for those was just looking at different ways of the afterlife and the different ways that it's perceived. Just like a paranormal investigator, like we all look at things a little bit differently. So I wanted a different type of story to kind of reflect that. And I believe you're going to have questions for me later about the last one, the rhythm tree. Just because of the perspective. And it was really just these were almost workshops for me to really kind of see, like, how can I get into the mindset of this type of person? Because they are based off of reincarnation into a specific type of tree. So the life tree was about a suicide, and then the umbrella tree was about an alcoholic, and then the rhythm tree was about a jazz musician in New Orleans. So they all reincarnated into some type of tree. They were all one large metaphor for the entire book, based off the title of each one. So that was kind of the inspiration. It was more of a workshop and me pushing myself to my limits to see if I could go into those realms and those mindsets and do the research. And talk to people and for the alcoholic one, that was interesting because I actually attended AA meetings. and actually talked to a lot of recovering alcoholics, and I talked to the leaders of the groups, and and it wasn't just one. I went to several with different types of people in them, like around town. So that one was probably the most reporter-esque, where I went into the field to go learn instead of reading it from a book or the internet. Like that
Wow.
one was really pretty in depth for me.
It's really cool. Now, and because we're on the subject of the rhythm trees, I'm going to just kind of pick my questions out for just that. So, the rhythm tree, they were an interesting, series of books. And I told you it had a little bit of like Dante's Inferno like feel to it for me, not because it was written in Latin or anything else fancy. It was the way it was written was very well written, well educated, like large vocabulary words. Like this was an intellectual read. And I think it was because of the metaphors. Like you used a lot of metaphors and you really like blended things in there, and you also tied music into a lot of what you did with your books. Um, Talk to me a little bit about the music piece and how that worked alongside your books. Because I think you said at some point you would thought about a like almost a soundtrack to the book.
Yeah. So, I wrote my first book. I was 19. I won't tell everybody how long ago that was, how many decades, but that was the horribly written. Let's experiment and try to put words. And by the way, I wrote that book on a word processor, like very small screen, like a 3 inch by 12 inch screen, like very
Ooh.
small. Yeah, crazy. And literally printed it out one page at a time. It was almost typewriter style. But the music piece, to get to the original question, is I was wanting something so unique, like that. I was running music stores back in those days and teaching percussion. And music was a very big part of my life. I grew up with my father, who was a musician. I was always around the bars and the bands and that kind of thing growing up. And music was a big part of my life. But I realized that rock and roll music wasn't the only style of music out there, and I wanted to have a soundtrack to every novel that I ever wrote. And I thought, like, how cool would that be to get a book and in the back flap are those old paper sleeves with the soundtrack to it, like right in the back, with its own graphic art and the whole 9 yards. And it was a pipe dream because it was never going to take off. And again, that was really the inspiration for Growing Dim. And we'll talk about that when that time comes. But that was the whole reason behind the music in every one, and especially since I was running music stores, which means I had to learn about different styles of music based off of customer base. So I learned a lot about jazz. I learned a lot about classical music. I listened to a lot of blues music. I even listened. I mean, and I'm not a fan of it today, but I did listen to the current rap at the time, just to kind of learn like what's the appeal. What's the newest album sound like? Can I give an opinion on it based off of my knowledge of what is considered good in that world? So it was more of a salesmanship because of what I was doing for a living, as a day job, which was running music stores.
Now I don't know how you would have fit a vinyl, on the back of each one of those
I
books,
know.
because
Or a phonograph, right? Or
yeah, trying to date Nick past
uh,
where how old he is.
hey, not that bad. I mean, I ran stores that had vinyl, but that was when it was new and hip because it was vintage. It wasn't because it was back that far in actual dates.
uh, Now there's a question that I wrote down, and this might take some people by surprise, but I thought it was a really interesting take, and it was a brave choice. So one of your novelettes is written from the perspective of an African American man. So what made you do it? Like, what made you decide to take that angle? Because just to you or to me or to other people, like it shouldn't be a big deal. Like we're gonna breach that now. It shouldn't be a big deal that you wrote from another person's perspective, but because you're a white man writing as a black man, it's going to be a controversial thing. Just because. But so why take that jump and make that choice? Like it was really, I was really surprised. Like the language was there. It was had not known you wrote it, I would have never guessed it.
Okay, I'll take that. So as a compliment, um, I did a lot of research, and the reason why I wrote it and the fact that I did was it was again the novelettes were me pushing my boundaries. And for me, if it's not controversial, it's not going to reach the readers. You know, not everybody wants the Merry Christmas story and the tropey, hero always gets the girl. So for me to write something of a perspective I don't know about, um, and I found this no different than me writing the book about the alcoholic because I'm not a huge drinker. So, I mean, I have a social drink at home. So that's socially with myself. So I
Their
don't know
personalities.
what that's like to be addicted to alcohol. Like I have no idea what that feels like. Just the same way I have no idea what it's like to be a black man in this world. So I had no qualms with uh, picking up the keyboard and learning and reading language and reading books like Uncle Tom's Cabin, and anything with that type of speech in it, with that very Southern draw, African American accent, because it's written that way. And that's exactly why I wrote it the way that I did it, was because it was pushing my boundaries, and I wanted people to know that I was a white guy. It wasn't that I'm hiding behind the cover. I mean, my picture's on the back. So it's that same factor of it's controversial, so therefore it should, I don't want to say like increase sales. That's not really what I was after, but let's face it, we don't always want that tropey story, so that's why I wrote it in that fashion.
Yeah, and I mean, I commend you. I remember opening the book and reading it, and I was like, this is very Southern. And then reading farther into it, and I was like, he didn't.
Did. And what's funny
Yeah.
is I actually wrote that book while living in Ohio, and I had never even visited the South. So there was a lot of research
Oh.
that went into that book.
I can tell. So the novelettes, like, while shorter, like I said, they're an intellectual read, and they definitely like give a different perspective on death. The whole concept of reincarnation. What made you choose trees? Like, what made you think, like, I need to do reincarnation, but I want everybody to be a tree? Like, that's the comment I usually make nowadays, because people are all like, everyone's identifying as something. And it's fine. Everybody gets their choice, and we've seen those fun videos where people are like, they pull the guy over and he's a cat, and he's like, I identify as a cat, and the cop's like, well, then you in the passenger seat must be the owner of the cat, and the cat is illegally driving the car, and you need to now we're taking him to the pound. Like, my comment to people is always like, oh, I'm going to go be a damn tree. You can fucking come water me. Like, I'm
Right.
So, like, why trees?
The versatility. I also didn't want it to always be like, I didn't want it to be a willow tree or the spruce. The titles are all something completely different that don't really relate to trees. Unless you've played RPGs your entire life, you don't always know what a life tree is. I even went back and forth with calling it a mana tree. Is it based off of what the book's subject matter is? I didn't feel like that was fitting, so the life tree worked out perfectly well. The rhythm tree was basically because the tree curves like music notes would on a stanza. That's the reason why I went with the rhythm tree. It's a book about jazz music in New Orleans, because he was a musician. The umbrella tree, I mean, you read it. I mean, he's sheltering fluid from another rooted tree, so he learns to help somebody else not be an alcoholic. So that kind of fit into that as well. But trees were very versatile to me, and they're great metaphorically. I mean, any writer will tell you you can compare a lot of shit to trees. So I mean, it worked and it flowed perfectly for what I was looking to do.
Yeah, it definitely did. I mean, and good choice, because the mana tree just does not sound right. Like, it just doesn't fit properly, especially to what I think what you created.
A lot of
And
people
now
get confused by that book, and I wanted it to kind of be that way. And folks, if you go to Amazon and look these books up, you're going to see a lot of very mixed reviews. some people, like Josh said, I wrote them very descriptively just because that's my style of writing. I write descriptively. And with that, some people don't like that. They like the story to move and to continue, continue, continue. Like they want the action pieces of it. But I like to stop and pause and really take a look at what's around. And that's where the descriptors come from. And that's kind of where the mixed reviews come from. And again, I know I had to progress, as a writer. So the tree books, are they my best work? I wouldn't say so, but they're definitely good work. Especially they're good project work and workshops for me, and taught me a lot to be able to write better books. So, I mean, to Josh's point, they're an intellectual read because I was experimenting a lot with those books. And especially the first book, The Life Tree, just confused the shit out of people. And that's why I decided to put that explanation from the narrator's point of view at the very end to really kind of bring it all together, almost make you want to read it again to look at it at a different light.
Yeah, and I think it's that concept that made me think Dante's Inferno,
Okay.
because like that's exactly like what Dante's Inferno is like. You read through it and you're like, I'm not 100% sure I understood what I read. And then you read like the explanation of what it is that happened and you're like, wow, that totally makes sense. And then you reread and be like, now it makes sense to me, and it's like that concept, like that. And it's funny because you sit there and you read books like that after a while, and then you find yourself like speaking completely differently because now
Right.
you're like, I'm an intellect.
I read books.
I've read the good books. But yeah, it definitely was like, I feel like it was like one of those like levels of book quality. Like I was pleasantly surprised. Like it's nice to see different things like that. And your works are very different. So like the Tree series is completely different than your other series of books. And
They are.
I know it kind of touched a little bit in the Life Tree, I think the Rhythm Tree, where it talks a little bit about like different colors for the souls.
Yeah.
And you bring that in much more as we get into the other books. So talk to us a little bit about the significance of the different colors that you use for different souls in the Life Tree, the Rhythm Tree, and as you get into your other series of books.
So, as somebody that just loves the woo-woo part of the paranormal and really like dives into other things other than just what the meters are telling me, um, there are studies out there that were capturing my attention long before I had equipment. And one of the studies that, I mean, I could probably reread this thing again tomorrow just because I love it. It's called Journey of Souls, and I know we've brought it up on the podcast in the past. But this study, so this is Dr. Michael Newton, and what he did here was he was putting people under hypnosis to go into their past lives, like a reincarnation piece. And what I found fascinating about it was that there was they would always picture themselves as kind of like a colored orb or a blob or even a blur, and there was always different levels based off of how far back, like how old their souls were, so to speak. So I found it fascinating that there were levels of souls, and I wanted those colors to have meaning in my work in kind of like a subtle way. So unless you've read this Michael Newton study, kind of I kind of twisted it into my own, but using the same color spectrum scale as Dr. Newton did, and that was where the colors came from. And in I guess in retrospect of wanting to create a full universe of books that talk about death and the afterlife in almost an uncomfortable manner, I wanted something to bring them all together cohesively, even though there might be standalone books, there might be series. They all kind of have one intertwining character or characteristic that kind of bring it all together, and you're like, yes, I just read a Nick Knight novel.
That's really cool. The colors really like it's interesting, and it leaves me wanting more. Like I want an explanation as I'm reading the books. And like we first
Might be a whole
come
nother book.
into yeah, like we first come into the colors of like the different souls in honestly it's most prominent in Byron, which is written as like a surprise prequel to Growing Dim, because I didn't expect it to be that way, but you told me to read them in that order. So when I read Byron, I was very confused because I had read a little bit of Growing Dim, and then I was reading through Byron, and I'm like, I don't understand how these connect until the end, and then it just hits. But Byron really like talks about those different colors quite a bit, and the journey through that book with all the colors, like it really does leave you wanting more. Like you want to know what's on this other side. Like why do the characters see the different colors? What do they mean? Why don't we understand? Like why don't we know? And it's interesting because instead of explaining it as the author, you basically give the reader the information that the characters have. So it's like they're journeying through this with them.
And the character doesn't necessarily know either, which is why the reader doesn't
Exactly.
know. So you actually bring up a good point. Um, something that you probably haven't noticed is that every one of my books thus far has been in first person. So that is something, and me journeying away from that to get into third person, where you're looking at it from like an outsider point of view, is something I'm experimenting with the current project that's totally not paranormal, not supernatural, a whole nother site. Like you and I've kind of talked about that, of what that project's going to be, and I'm happy to talk about it, believe it or not, just because I know it doesn't really belong in this kind of sector of books. But first person is me putting myself in that person's mindset, and then I'm taking you through it, like. Because you're that person, like that's how this works for me. I write much easier in a first person format, and believe it or not, most trained writers, with the level of education that I have in this field, that is their Achilles heel that they cannot do. They write better in third person. So I find it very odd because I struggle with third person. I really do.
That's interesting. I know any writing I've done or dabbled in, like I've been able to do a little bit of stuff third person, but it was all children's novels. Um, and anything I've written other than that is first person because I just have such a hard time putting myself anywhere else but with the character.
Yeah, I have to be the character. So I mean, every one of these books, there is a piece of Nick in every one of these main characters, just because I had to live through some of it just to be able to get to the mindset so I can fully explain it from a like that person's point of view. Like I'm not an alcoholic. I don't know what that feels like. So I had to put myself in that mindset and talk to others and grab the language and grab the mannerisms and see how they react. And I mean, I'm a people watcher. I kind of have to be to create these characters that I have. So that's a big deal for me to be in that mindset. Like I don't want to tell you about an alcoholic. I want you to feel what the alcoholic feels.
Yeah. And I think that kind of brings us straight into like the book, like Byron. It's a cute book with a dog on the cover, and then you open it up and you get slapped in the face with death. Like it is almost immediate. It starts off really dark, and it definitely threw me for a loop for a second there, but like the storyline is so unique, and like you said, there's a little bit of Nick in every book. And as someone who's your friend, like reading through it, it really made me start sitting there and thinking, like, what parts of this, relate directly to Nick, and what parts of this are all made up? Like, how much do I really know about my best friend? I was like, damn. I'm like, I know, like, this fits, here, but I'm like, does any of the rest of that? So, like, talk to us a little bit about, like, your relation to the character through the book of Byron, because like your dog's name is Byron. You
Yes,
have
and actually,
he's
that
your
is my dog on the cover. Like that's a
yeah.
photo. So uh I guess for the listeners out there, like this is actually kind of tough to talk about. Um so the main character is kind of obsessed. I don't know if obsessed is the right word, with suicide. And these are things that I have struggled with in my past. So yes, there are certain chapters in Byron that I've had to live through over again. I mean, I'm my tear. I could feel my eyes welling up just talking about it. There are chapters in there that I wrote just as like almost journal entries and kind of transitioned it into actual chapters. So Josh, I'm sure you can go back and pick and choose which chapters those are now that you know that. But that it has been something that I've struggled with some of the I guess health and mental health issues that I've had through most of my life. So yeah, this book is a lot of it's me, a lot of it. I wouldn't say that there was an obsession with it, but it kind of gives you the mindset of when somebody is going through that depressed mental state, what does that feel like if you've never been through it? And that was something, and I should have some kind of mental health awareness somewhere inside this book, just to kind of let people know, like, hey, this is what it feels like this is the real deal. It's dark, it can be twisted, it's fucked up, nobody likes it. And again, if it makes you uncomfortable, keep reading, because that's what makes us learn about each other. And that's kind of how this book came to be. So some parts of it, there's even another character in here, the other main character of Julie. She's a real person. So she is a fantastic person. She and I were really close friends, damn near besties, like back in the day. And I asked her, because she has such a badass name, if I could use like her real name inside the book. So yeah, she is a real person, and I use her full nickname in there and everything of Yellow Sky. Like it just fit the personality. And she loves the book. Like she is a fan. So I sent her a copy immediately after I published it. She fell in love with it. She has done her promotions and social media stuff for me to kind of get it out there when it first got published. But yeah, this book is probably the closest to any kind of hardships that I've ever had to go through. And I wanted to put it into a fucked up story so people could understand. And like you said, it's kind of twisted. There's some twists in here that really throw you for a loop. Probably about 60 to 75% through the book, and you're like, "What is happening right now?"
Yeah, it was constant. I mean, I felt like I was just like every time I got to a point where like I was okay, I know what's gonna happen next. Like I'm one of those people that like, my girlfriend turns on a movie and I'm like, another one of these movies. Like, this happens, this happened, they end up happily ever after,
Right, right.
everybody's fucking happy. And it's like you and every time it's like dead on, Your book gave me no opportunity to even get close to that.
And
And
I think that's where some of those mixed reviews come from, because people love those tropes. There's a reason why they work. So when I don't give it to them, they're like, "Yeah, this guy's like weird," and I'm okay with it. Like I'm okay with the 1 to 2 star review for the person that didn't understand it because they couldn't
yep,
follow it. Like that's kind of what I wanted out of it. Not bad reviews, but
yeah.
somebody that said, "Wow, that's really like twisted. Like why the hell did he do it that way?" Maybe really look at the book again, read it again.
Yeah. So, and I mean, the main character has such a like exhilarating journey, through all of this. Mm, It's such a different, as far as a different stance. And you see the character progress, as the book goes on. And I think without like, it's almost like watching the character come to a realization they
Hmm.
don't want suicide, even
Yeah.
though they don't understand that that's what they're going for now. And the bringing in Byron, bringing in the dog, like, and doing the whole out of body experience thing, like that right there, I think was like the coolest twist I've ever seen. Like you turned your dog into the spirit guide, basically.
Yeah. Like, that
You
was
know?
exactly it. Because in real life, we've already mentioned Byron is my real dog. Byron is my emotional support animal. He's registered. He's been through all of the paperwork and the doctors and everything else to see what he does for me and some of the things that I have with my seizures and episodes. And I wanted to turn him into a character. I wanted to immortalize him, so to speak, just based off of what he truly does. So of course, I turned that part into the fictitious portion of the book where, he allows, he's the reason why the main character can have those out of body experiences to see what it would be like. It's almost like the It's a Wonderful Life story. What's it like to be dead? kind of mentality. So he shows him the other side. That's the premise of the story. Is really him getting a glance of like, oh shit, this really isn't what I want. But Byron gives him an ability that's also scary. Like, it's cool to be able to punch through walls, but what wall am I going to actually punch through?
Yeah. And it definitely was. Like, it was definitely like you saw the good and the bad from each experience, and it seemed to accumulate and continue to go farther. And the ending of this book threw me for a complete loop. Like, there was so much that happened so quickly. And there was a lot of like really big moments in there.
Can just
And
throw
I
it out there,
was
Josh.
so well there's an age gap for the relationship at the end of the book that ends up basically making headway into the next books, going into Growing Dim, and I was like, the one thing I think out of the whole book that I really had like a huge question is why such a big age gap to create that scenario. Like,
So the scenario, I'll explain it and spell it out. So because the main character can have out of body experiences as long as Byron, is there to aid him, um, he found that he can actually take somebody with him to the other side through sexual contact. And it was found out by accident. But then there's somebody that actually needs his help. So when it came time to actually help, that particular character, the age gap was significant, like Josh said. It wasn't an underage sexual act. I wanted to make sure of that it was nothing to that nature. But I also wanted this to be um, not an emotional sexual contact in the way that we kind of look at sexual contact in Western civilization today. I wanted it to be an act of this is what's necessary to do to be able to help this person. So it wasn't necessarily um, an attractive kind of sexual contact. It was more like, okay, let's do this and let me show you what the other side looks like. And it was based off of, let's face it, our listener base is definitely 18 plus, and we can mark this episode that way. But sexual contact is very intense, it's very emotional. It does a lot of things to the body and the mind. And I wanted to show that, like, what are we missing out on as far as what we don't know about what those connections with other humans, the way we, with sexual contact, like what does that look like once it's not, the guys going to the bar to see if they can score, like kind of mentality. Like I didn't want
right.
sex to be looked at in that light inside of this book. Now I understand that some people are going to take it the wrong way, and I completely get it. They may not understand like where I was going with it, but this was really about mind, body, and spirit connecting, not necessarily an attraction from one gentleman to, we'll just say, a college-aged girl. Like that was not the intent. It was more mind, body, and spirit.
Got it. And I mean, this takes us directly into the next book because this obviously creates our main character for the next series of books. And that last chapter, like happy family, and then poof, I was like, no. Like, I almost want there to be another book to tell like the story of what the hell the other characters were just like, where the hell did what? Like, how did this happen? Because it's like, I'm a new parent, like I can't imagine that scenario. It's like, oh, look at my little poof. It's like, God damn it. Like I almost feel like you need to do a short story to explain the aftermath of that part. Like, and they have like those characters have yet to reoccur in the series. I'm like, I'm not done with this book yet, but I have a feeling I'm not going to find them because it's continued on in its own direction. And your main character, like the only reason I understood it before I even picked up Growing Dim is because of the name. So you picked the name Crossman as this character's first name. Now you're a literary word wizard. You use shit tons of words from all over the place. and you've melded them all together. The name Crossman has to have some kind of significance to you.
Yeah, it's not what you think it is. You're calling me a word wizard right now. I actually stole that. Um, so I had a girlfriend once upon a time before the
No.
wives. Um, and one thing that she always said was, if I ever have children, I'm going to name him Crossman. And I just fell in love with the name itself just because it could be misconstrued in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Of course, that girlfriend was looking at it for a religious value, just because she came from a religious home, and I respected it. So when we split up, I started working on that book, and I called her. I'm like, hey, I'm going to steal your kid's name. Hopefully you're good with that. And that was kind of the end of the conversation because I had the he who bears the cross,
Yeah.
made complete sense for what I was looking to do with that particular character. So, yeah, that book is that one's near and dear to my heart too. Not to say that Book of Joel isn't, but I mean I put a lot of time into writing Growing Dim, and of course it's very we'll just say late 90 esque. It definitely shows that type of goth rock band kind of
Yeah.
feel to it.
No, it's definitely got a lot more of like my childhood going through it. Like there's this deep
Yeah.
vein there. And now these books, like obviously in Byron, we were introduced to abilities. But it started to be highlighted once we got to Growing Dim. So where did this come from? Like where did this like sprout up where you decided like I want there to be abilities, but I want it to all it basically be almost like tangible, because there is the experimentation, showing that our brains don't activate certain bits and pieces and things, and we're capable of doing so much more. And the whole ESP, and like there's entire conventions where people sit there and have contests to see how much shit they can move with their head, and I'm not talking physically. So, like,
So
where did
I guess
the whole ability piece?
I had to like wind it into the story. So, concept of the story for the listeners that haven't read these books, this one in particular, we find that the main character is finding that he has like mental abilities, and just like Josh just said, and he's wondering like what's happening to himself. And he's finding himself like in a darker place, like, and then he starts to realize like he is the person to take over the underworld. Like that is his role. That was what his birth intention was to be. So he has to make a decision whether he's going to take on the role or not. And I there are parts of Nick in this book as well. Obviously, the lead character is a drummer. That's what I was teaching when I lived in Cleveland. I played rock drums for years, and there's certain scenes inside this book that were things that were happening to me that were introducing me to the paranormal world. So it even the cover itself is kind of a reflection of that. So the cover kind of like has our Grim Reaper, style hooded figure on there, and that was something that I actually saw physically in real life, back in the day before I wrote the book. And there's a few scenes in there with this hooded figure that were true to life of me writing in a journal and wanted to incorporate it into a fiction work. So the story actually revolved around this hooded figure that I saw multiple times, through my adolescence, we'll just say. So these were things that weren't really talked about, among my family. It's not like I can say, "Hey, Ma, just saw, Grim Reaper across the street." You know what I mean? Like it just that's not shit you say in that type of religious home. So it was just written down, and I incorporated it much later into Growing Dim because I wanted, and I learned a few good lessons with Life of Death. Um, but once I got into Growing Dim, like I knew like this is what I want to do. Like I want to write books, whether or not it's something I can make a living at. I'm going to create some, pretty badass looking covers, and we're gonna work on it and get better at it. That was the whole premise. But Growing Dim, like that's the premise of the story, and the Crossman name comes from like he is known because it's almost like a Voldemort type of mentality once he reaches the underworld or visits the underworld. Like he's not spoken of just yet, so they all call him He Who Bears the Cross because his name is Crossman. So it was very, very fitting and very, very gothic, for that style of writing. It just worked.
And I'm learning all sorts of things about you today. Like we're gonna have to revisit these sightings of death. And you're
Yeah.
just hanging out as a kid, and he's across the street getting a fucking ice cream cone, and you're I'm just finding out about this shit now.
So there's a scene in there where this hooded figure almost like performs for him in an open field. And it's a snowy. I mean, I'll remember this day for the rest of my life because I lived it. But that's a real thing. Like that is something that I saw.
That is intense. Like I can't even imagine. Like I've seen my fair share of like figures, shadow people, um, just people that don't exist, basically. But like a full-on hooded figure, Grim Reaper type thing, like that is a completely different level of apparition. Like
So
at
you
least
can
in my book.
almost kind of see like where my I hate to use the word obsession, with death, has come from. From my mental health that I've lived through, um, and the things that I've seen, and turned it into. I write books about death to get that outlet out, and now I'm a full time paranormal researcher. Like that's kind of where all of this stemmed, is from the scenes from Growing Dim. Like that's where a lot of this started. We get interviewed all the time on other podcasts about like, hey, how'd you start? And I keep it nice and simple, just because of their audience. I'm not sure like where things can go. And I don't want to take over, everything with everything that happened through my adolescence and early 20s. Like
Right.
that's it could be an hour-long show, as everybody's finding out.
Yeah.
But yeah, these books are personal, like very, very personal for me.
And now you go deep into this vein of like Greek mythology as we go through these books. Now, Greek mythology also has to have some kind of connection, something that has meaning to you, because everything in these books has some type of meaning to you.
I was like, when I started like really diving into books that were not just horror novels from John Saul, Stephen King, Anne Rice, I was reading Greek mythology. And I loved trying to connect like where the next family member came from in one poem to the next, or that kind of epic, like what can we do. I love to try to figure it out, so even my research skills were being honed back then. But Greek mythology was always something I was into, which is probably why I'm obsessed with our sponsor, Magnanimous Beard Products, that names everything after Greek mythology. But gotta throw that plug in there, man. But it was always a thing for me, especially things with the underworld and the way that it was laid out. And like you said, Dante's Inferno, I look at it as the Divine Comedy. Dante's Inferno is just one part of that. But when you're reading those things at 12, 13, 14 years old, like those are not exactly easy reads. Some people as adults like kind of struggle with that type of old, Oxford English style of writing and that kind of mentality. Um, but these were things that I was reading, at that age, and books have always been. I'll call it that an obsession for sure, because books have always and always will be my thing. I love books, always have.
Now, in Growing Dim, there's a conflict. The characters basically in this conflict of decision and conflict with the Shade, the character that basically is the I don't know if you want to put it as
He's
like the
ruler of the
Hades
underworld.
or yeah.
Yeah.
So he makes a decision, and he makes this decision to be like, this is my choice. This is how I'm going to do this on my own term. Why make the decision in the first book and not stretch it out and have more of that conflict back and forth? A lot of authors take a concept and run it 6, 7, 8 books. But like you got directly to the point through one book. He has this conflict. He has all this stuff going on. He figures out the puzzle. Like he does all of it in the one book. Like, why
So
not
two
draw out
things.
the?
This book I wrote. This was the second novel that I wrote, so I didn't even know that there was going to be more books. So I didn't know if this was going to be a standalone novel, But if I was going to turn it into more books, it was going to be, this new shade that he had to make the decision for. It was going to be about him building things his way, and by choosing each cabinet member, of his underworld, as I guess band of brothers, and his advisory team, one by one, and how he chooses them, which is where you're reading now in Book of Joel.
Right.
So he is, essentially the first cabinet member that is chosen to be part of the Shades administration. We'll say it. So I guess past Book of Joel, I had other bigger ideas. That's where Byron came from. So I never really got to fully finish. Like, if I was going to finish the Growing Dim series, it would probably be a total of about 8 to 9 books, because there would be that many cabinet members.
Wow. So there's like it definitely like the Book of Joel. It definitely takes it. It's almost like it spirals deeper into the mythology, and it takes it a completely like it goes deeper in, and like it's interesting. Like I almost feel like we're headed on that spiral down through the Divine Comedy as we're getting into it. So it's interesting. Um, so you have another book that we should be hopefully seeing soon.
Yeah,
I was under the
hopefully.
impression it was related to the series. Is it not related?
It is not. It is actually related more so to Byron.
Okay.
So that book is called Afterlantis, where I have taken Atlantis and incorporated it into the, I guess, heaven, hell, and purgatory type of realms and planes. And it turns out that the main character from that is the brother of the main character of Byron.
Okay. Okay. So
So
does that mean I get my explanation from the last book? That
no,
I get the aftermath from Byron of what's going on? No?
no, not even close.
Damn it, Nick. Damn it. I demand explanations, Nick.
So the Afterlantis book was actually my thesis for college, for my master's program. And the reason why it's not been published yet is because my wife is very, very busy, and she's the one who creates all of my covers, and she only does it after she reads the book itself, so she's inspired. So she is going through some college work herself, and of course has her very, very busy day job. So hence we are multiple years later. I don't even want to say how many years after that we're still waiting on a book cover from April. We should be grateful we got an almanac cover from her last year. So like these take a lot of time for her. But the Byron cover was actually like a photo shoot in our living room, like that brick wall on the cover. That's actually a backdrop. Like that's a real thing. So yeah, that was me holding a treat off in the distance to get his attention, which is why he is looking up the way that he does. I mean, these take time. I mean, we're not going to do another photograph for Afterlantis because it's very fantastical. But I wrote that book with the intention of a full Hollywood movie star cast, with that in mind. So that actually made it a lot easier to write. So the new book that I'm working on right now, I'm doing the exact same thing. So it's a very interesting way of thinking.
I definitely am going to have to make a request. I need to know what happens after the aftermath of Byron. So there needs to be like a Byron 2.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to do that. I like Byron as a standalone novel. I kind of like it as that in between. Like it's kind of like the upside down, as they say in Stranger Things. It's the upside down.
Damn it!
It's
Damn
kind of
Nick.
fucks everybody's mind up to wanting more, and it just gives you another book.
Well, it's been pretty cool to like go through, pick your brain, and like really get to know more about you through these books. They're all really, really interesting reads. So I definitely look forward to Afterlantis coming out and seeing what that looks like. Obviously everything's available on Amazon. Is there anything else people should know or need to know before they go and start diving into all these?
Yeah, if you find a copy of Life or Death, just don't leave it a bad review. Just let it be what it is. I know it's bad, but the cover's so gorgeous. I love the cover so much. It It was fitting, and the story is great. I know it's poorly written. I got gooder as I got along. So just continue reading, folks. Again, I'm always going to encourage people to read books, whether or not it's my work or somebody else's. I don't care what book you read. Just make sure you're reading. And as far as another new project that I'm working on, who knows if it's going to be released into the world? Yeah, been working on that one slowly. Josh is already grinning because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. So I don't know that our listeners actually care what the hell I'm working on, or well, yeah, what I'm working on. So we'll see what happens with Afterlantis once I get that thing released, and maybe I'll announce after that, like what my new adventure with the writing world will actually be. But I mean, obviously, I publish nonfiction books as well with the almanac and the workbook. I've had several articles published all over. I've had fiction, like short stories, published before too, as part of my programs in college. So again, writing will never stop for me. I'm constantly writing, and I can't wait to see what the hell I come up with next.
Same, very much the same. So I look forward to seeing whatever is next. Obviously, anybody if has any questions, like put it down in the comments. Leave a review. Let us know what you think if you have read through any of these books or you get any of them. Unfortunately, I'm not as well decorated as Nick is in this field as part of the writers. I have one book, and it's about I think it's shorter than all of his novelettes. Tales from a Ghost Hunter.
We're gonna thicken that up for you.
Yeah, that's my nonfiction. And that is literally just my experiences in the paranormal of where I've seen like full-bodied apparitions and some of the weirder things that are the most entertaining, honestly, experiences in the paranormal that I can write about. But yeah, so this was a very interesting episode. I'm surprised we were actually made a full hour out of going through your books. I didn't expect.
You had some odd questions I was not expecting. So yeah, there's your hour that you filled up, because that wasn't me. It was your questioning that actually did it. I was like kind of like, oh shit, he's really diving in. Like, all right, let's go.
I always do. It's my purpose.
Always make more work.
Yeah.
All right, folks, this has been episode 75. Thank you again. And again, if you become a fan of my fiction, you are appreciated. So we'll see you on our last episode.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Stories in the Cemetery podcast. You can follow your host, Nicholas McGirr, on most social media platforms under the name Stories in the Cemetery. If you'd like to follow co-host Joshua Amen, you'll find him under the name Amen Paranormal Research. Be sure to check out the show notes for any links to specific articles written by your hosts and all the references used to create this episode. Happy hunting. We'll see you on the next episode of the Stories in the Cemetery podcast.